Well, hello there, and welcome back to my YouTube channel today. My name is Deepa Robbins, and I'm coming to you from Designs by D. And today I'm going to show you a couple of Father's Day cards. So let's have a look at them here. I worked on two different cards. One I decided to use a lot of blues, which is here, and the second card I chose to use a bunch of greens. Now I know that it's actually probably Father's Day when I upload this, or maybe the day after, but you can always change up the sentiments here and make it for a masculine birthday, or maybe even for Father's Day next year. So let's go ahead and get into it. For the first card, I use Bristol Strathmore cardstock white, and these are actually big sheets. They're 11 by 14 inches, as I'm showing you here. So you get a lot of cardstock to work with. So I'm going to cut this down, and this piece is going to end up being 5.5 by 5.5 inches. So there you go. There's the 5.5 by 5.5. And I'm deciding to use that because I'm going to be doing some coloring. This is Nina Exact White, 90 pound, and this one's 8.5 by 5.5. And here's actually one that I did ahead of time, and I'm gonna kind of use the same concept here. So here's the Ultra New Pattern Play Circle background stamp, and it's actually pretty cool because it's got this great big background, and then it also has all these little elements that you can stamp inside the circles to stamp colors, or you can actually create your own background separately or add to the background wherever you feel like. So what I'm going to do here is position that Strathmore Bristol paper in my stamp positioner, and it's the perfect size for that background stamp, which is why I decided to use it. I'll use some Versamark embossing ink here, and that's because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing. And I'm just using my anti-static tool just to make sure that I don't get a big mess, especially because this is a background stamp. I don't want to have to be brushing away a bunch of little pieces of embossing powder. And it's also important to note, since you are doing a bigger stamp, you kind of want to make sure you get good pressure along the full back there when you're pressing it down. So I'll take that off here and add some Ranger Silver embossing powder to it. So this is sort of going to give it more of a cooler tone, and I decided to do it backwards. Normally we'll use the cooler tone colors, metallic colors like the silver with blues, but I decided to use the warmer gold with that, and this is going to be used with greens, and I think greens can sort of go either way. They can be cool or warm. So I'm adding the embossing powder here, making sure to get every single bit there, and I'll put extra wherever I feel like there's not enough, and tapping off the excess. Now I'm going to add my melt it to the paper with my heat gun, and it's very important to sort of heat that gun up for a couple minutes before you put it to the paper, just so that you're not burning your paper, and it's nice and hot so it can melt your powder. And there you go, there's that final background stamp, and it gives you that nice sheen with the silver embossing powder. So I just want to show you that this was the one that I stamped earlier, and I was trying to get it to look like the Simon Says stamp. I forget exactly what it's called. It's one of the triangle stamps, abstract triangles, I think, and instead I'm using the Alta New Simple Shapes stamp, and I just used the two triangles there to sort of randomly stamp all over the place. So I just sort of stamped and heat embossed, stamped and heat embossed, and that's how I got that effect. And I'm going to show you how I do that here with the Alta New Geometric Flowers stamp set. So I'm actually going to be creating a third background, but I didn't actually use it in the end. That's why I only have two cards to show you. But I want to show you how I made that triangle background, and that's how I'm doing that here. So I'm only going to use two of the geometric flowers here. And once again, since I will be heat embossing, I'm using that Versamark ink. And I'm just going to use my acrylic blocks here because it would take forever to use a stamp positioner with only two stamps. So I'm just going to add my embossing ink to the stamp and stamp a few images. It's a little hard to see, but if you sort of look at the paper closely, you can see where you last stamped, even with the watermark ink. And for this one, I'm using Ranger Copper embossing powder. This is actually a really nice embossing powder, even though it's copper. It does, I really like it, especially for warmer and Christmas cards. So there I am. That's the first layer there, or the first section. And I'm just overlapping, making sure I overlap the images just to create a full background. And that's exactly what I did with the other one with the triangles. I just overlapped and turned the triangles upside down, forwards, backwards, whatever I wanted to create triangles or squares or different shapes within the triangles. Just so that when you color it, you get a bit of a blend and it looks kind of cool. So I'm just going to continue here with doing that. I'll keep stamping these two images and then heat embossing after I've stamped a few. If you really want to be exact, you can stamp one by one, but it takes much longer. And it looks like my computer can't handle the fact that I sped this up so much, but you get the idea. And I'll just fast forward to the end here and show you the last bit of stamping. So I stamped all the last images together, I think 4 stamps at a time, and dried that up. And I'm also actually heating the back here because as you can see, the cardstock is warping. It's folding up or curling up. So if I heat it on the back, I'm going to reverse this and it's going to start curling backwards. So eventually one sort of cancels out the other and you get your flat paper back again, or sorry, cardstock. So there's a final result and you get a nice overlapping type background geometric image there. Now I'm just going to do some Copic coloring here. I have my colors listed below. And in honor of the 30-day challenge hosted by Kathy Rakusin, I do not know her, but I do like the challenge. And it basically promotes coloring just for maybe 5-10 minutes each day, just to sort of help relax yourself and have some fun coloring. You can start with a small image and eventually color it in after a week or two. And you can also post them and hashtag it the daily marker 30 day. And it'll be entered to win some prizes at the end of the month. And if you want to take a look at that challenge, you can actually find it on my blog. It's just right on the right panel. So here you have the final product. And it looks pretty cool. I've colored in all my triangles. And it's important to note that in between, you want to wipe off the Copic coloring from the parts that were embossed with maybe just dab it off with a paper towel. So now I'm moving on to the circle background. And I'm actually going to be using some Zig Clean markers here. And that's why I chose to use the Bristol cardstock, because these Zig markers color and blend so nicely on this cardstock because it's smooth. It creates such a nice surface for this. So here I'm using a bunch of greens. I've listed them at the bottom. And I'm just sort of coloring them in. Like I said, nothing fancy, just coloring them in. So I'm just going to fast forward that coloring to the end. And I actually used a couple colors, which I didn't find, they were a little too blue. So I went back over them with my more green markers, as you can see that I'm doing right here. And there you go. That's what I get as a final product there. And you can see it looks pretty cool with the overlapping circles. Now I want to show you that these are the 3 backgrounds that I worked on. So the first one was the green circle background. And here's that overlapping geometric flowers background. Turned out pretty cool. And there's the triangle one. Now I'm actually not going to use that geometric circles background just because I felt it was a little too feminine for a Father's Day card. So I'll save it for something else. So I'll go ahead and make the card bases. I'm using Hammermill printer paper 100-pound white. And for the triangle card, it's bigger. So I'm just going to fold this paper in half. It's 8.5 by 11. So I'll get 8.5 by 5.5, which is just like that triangle piece. I'll end up cutting that so I get a bit of a border. And this one is for the circle card. So I'm showing you, I've cut 2 squares, one with a bit of a lip, and I scored it so that I can bend it later on. And I'm adding some Be Creative super strong tape, sticking it on there and scoring it on with my scorer because I don't have a bone folder. And I'll go ahead and line that up and take off the backing and stick that together. So that's how I get my card base for the 5.5 inch by 5.5 inch card. And as you can see, it fits on nicely. Now I'm going to be using this Post-it removable labeling tape to sort of mask off the corner, or sorry, the side of my card. So this is the front edge, and I'm actually using some Wink of Stella silver glitter brush. I wanted a metallic border here, but with a bit of shine. So this has a glitter component that gives you that. And I just sort of created a bit of a border here, and I'll be putting that that background, the circles background, on top of this. So there's the kind of sheen that you get with the glitter. And I'll pull off that masking tape. And there's my center. So I'll just attach this. Now I actually ran out of my Tombow Mono, this one. I start using it, and then at the end here I end up having to use the dot runner because I ran out. I'm just waiting for my next shipment of that. And there we go. See, adding the dot runner. So I'll put that onto the card front, like so that I get a bit of that silver border around the edge, which also matches my silver heat embossing on the circles there. So that sort of ties that background into the border. And then I'll do the same thing with the triangles background here. I'm just sort of cutting off a bit of the edge because, as you saw, it actually fits exactly on my card base, and I did want that bit of a frame or a border to sort of peek through the back. So I'll cut that to size and I'll attach it to the front. Now for this one I used the Wink of Stella gold glitter brush, as you can see here, and I just did it the exact same way that I did the last card. Masked it off with that Post-it tape and then put this on the top. I actually like that Post-it tape. It's perfect because it peels off really nicely. I don't normally get any tearing of my card base. So now I'll move on to this set here. I have a Concord and Ninth Bloom fill-in, the die set and the stamp set. This is a really cool set. I do recommend getting it, and I am going to be doing a video on this set. It's a little older, but it's really nice. I think they have come out with a second one, but I still like this one the most. So I just actually got the dies, so I'm going to be using that sort of, what is that? I guess that squished hexagon shape there to create my labels for my sentiment. And I'm just showing you here that this is how I cut apart my dies. I have this little wire cutter that I actually use for jewelry making. And this little bowl here, I know you can buy magnetic bowls to cut this into, but I actually got this from from one of my husband's toolkits. It came in a toolkit set he had, and it has that magnet on the bottom. I guess it's for nails, but it works equally for your dies. So go through your husband's stuff and steal that if you need to. So here I've cut out two pieces, one in blue and one in green to just match the backgrounds that I've made. And I'm going to do some heat embossing on them as well. And this will sort of tie in again the backgrounds that I've made. I'm showing you, or trying to show you here, this little roof type V-type shape that they have. And this goes perfectly with this die set. Sorry, with this actual cutout die cut. And so I'm going to be heat embossing. So I'm using my anti-static tool again and the gold Ranger embossing powder. I'll stamp that on the bottom part and the top. So I'm inking up again. I'll stamp it on the top, and I think I've decided, oh yeah, maybe I should do a bit of a close-up here so you guys can see what I'm doing. And I'll add the embossing powder here. So this is why your anti-static tool is really important. I always tend to forget to use it, and I actually used to use the EK Success Tools one. I mean, it's whatever you like. I prefer the Inka Dinka Do anti-static bag just because I feel like it easily covers your whole surface if I have a bigger surface area. However, I do find that EK Success Tools anti-static tool, that one comes in handy when making shaker cards because you can get it right in the sides when you want to make sure that your foam tape doesn't stick to your sequins or whatever you're putting into your shaker card. I'll sort of explain that in another video so it'll make more sense. So now I'm going to go on and use this Concord and Ninth Bold and Brushy Uppercase stamp set. This is one of the newer sets that they released. I think not in the past release, but the one before that. It's really cool. And I'm also going to use this Lon Fawn Dad and Me stamp set. This is perfect because it has the Happy Father's Day sentiment, which I'm showing you right here. That's all I'm really going to be using from this stamp set. So I'll go ahead and mount what I need onto my acrylic blocks. And so this is the D and A. And of course, I'm going to put the other D in there for Dad from that Concord and Ninth brushy, bold brushy letters stamp set. These are so cool because they're a little whimsical or funky in the sense that you don't have to fully line them up. You can sort of stagger your letters too, so you get more of a funky look as well. I really like this set. It's so versatile. You can use it for anything and even tailor sentiments to exactly what you want, especially if, say, you have religious holidays that, you know, people out there don't actually have a stamp set for. You can spell it out in English and use your letter sets to get the exact sentiment that you want. So there's the sentiment label that you get to put on the front of the card. And I did the exact same thing with the green, but I used a different sentiment. I used the Happy Father's Day sentiment from the My Sentiments Exactly Father's Day Innies and Outies stamp set. It's the one that you see here. And here's me putting it onto the front. So I'm not going to be using the tape runner here. I'm using Tombow Mono Liquid Multipurpose Glue because, once again, it is liquid. It gives me some wiggle room so I can sort of get that on there straight and I can play with it a little bit before the glue dries. So there's the front of the green card with the circles. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the blue triangles. I'll put that onto the front and wiggle that around to get it to the exact place that I want it to go. And here's another trick, and I'm sure you've seen so many other people do it. Just put your acrylic blocks on top to weigh it down until it sticks well. And there you have it. Those are my Father's Day cards for you today. And if you have a chance, take a moment to just subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll show you how I decorate the insides of this card. And if you do have a chance, visit my blog, and I've sort of posted that in the description below. And I have a bunch of other projects that I've worked on. Some of them I've created videos for, and some of them I haven't. And if you do want to see some of the other videos I've made, just click on the links here. I have 2 videos that you might want to take a look at. So once again, thanks for viewing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, bye.